Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We have just finished a beautiful weekend at Navy Pier in Chicago at the Chicago Toy and Game Fair. We had such an amazing time, and we are now in the beautiful town of Remington, Indiana, ready to introduce you to two wonderful guests for this edition of the show. Danielle Dufayet is back to tell us all about her wonderful book, Fantastic You. And later on in the show, Deepa Remesh will be here to talk about Mystery Tales. Yeah, I mentioned that we had such a great time at the Chicago Toy and Game Fair. You're going to be hearing some of the interviews that we recorded at the Chicago Toy and Game Fair later on. We had such a great time meeting families, meeting kids, introducing families and kids to great books. And one of those great books that the kids and families and parents loved was The Last Surviving Dinosaur, the Tyrannosaurus by our friend Stephen Joseph. I've told you about this book in the past. It's a really, really wonderful book. It tells you what happened to the dinosaurs. And they weren't destroyed by a meteor that came down and wiped them all out. No. They were done in by the Tyrannosaurus, which was the most crankiest and complainingest dinosaur of them all, and just made all the other dinosaurs disappear. It's a wonderful book. It's so playful, and it reminds us all to be aware of when we are cranky and complaining, and to really just kind of love life. And one of the things I love about the book is that it is so much fun to read aloud. We challenged a number of parents to read aloud the book to their kids at the Chicago Toy and Game Fair, and they had such an amazing time. It's not easy pronouncing the Tyrannosaurus. I mean, I don't even do it properly, but the first time you go at it, and the kids just had a blast, and your family will have a blast too. The Last Surviving Dinosaur by Stephen Joseph. This is a book that you want in your family library. It is available on Amazon. We are so excited. I always love when we get a chance to speak to one of our favorite guests, and that's what's happening today. Our guest today is the author of the brand new inspiring book, Fantastic You. Please welcome back to the show, Danielle Dufayet. Danielle, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and I'm really excited. The response to your last visit to the show, talking about You Are Your Strong, was really, really positive, and so I know that folks are looking forward to finding out about Fantastic You. Tell us all about the book, please.
Great. Yeah, so it's my second book, and it came right after I wrote You Are Your Strong. So it's another inspirational book about, the first one was all about tapping into your inner strength, and this one, Fantastic You, is all about self-love and self-care and what that looks like in a day. So I really wanted to break it down and show kids and people, what does that mean? Because it's not all about just saying, oh, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great. And so what that looks like in a day.
Yeah, so tell us, we hear those terms a lot, and like a lot of terms that we hear in pop culture and the media, we never really get good definitions of it. We hear the words and we think, okay, it means this, but sometimes it means this to one person and that to another person. What do those terms, self-love, self-care, mean to you?
Well, actually, this book started out as a book, like a how-to book, how to be your own best friend. Basically, we treat others, hopefully, with love and kindness and forgiveness and all these wonderful qualities. And that's what we're taught as children, which is wonderful because we need to know how to have good relationships with the people in our lives. But then it's kind of like we jumped over how to have a good relationship with ourselves. And so that's what this book, it celebrates just loving yourself. It's mainly about positive self-talk, self-forgiveness, self-compassion, cheering ourselves on. I mean, it's great when we have wonderful people in our lives that we can depend on, of course, to cheer ourselves, to kind of be in our court and encourage us. But sometimes we just kind of have to do that for ourselves. And so this book is just basically about doing that for ourselves, because we're going to be with ourselves our whole lives. We don't really think about it like that, but we're with ourselves 24/7, 365 days of the year. So what kind of a relationship do we have with ourselves? We want it to be good and healthy, have good, healthy coping skills, and just really nurture the relationship that we have with ourselves.
You know, one of the things that occurred to me when my kids were growing up and we were sharing our values and our religious values with the kids. And one of the things, you know, people who belong to the three major religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, they all have this one basic tenet or commandment: love God and love others. And I think sometimes we forget about the fact that we're part of the others.
Right. I know. It's like this most basic concept, and yet we don't really talk about it. And it's so important, right? I mean, because I think if we have a good relationship with ourselves, we're automatically going to know how to treat others well.
What do we need to do to have a relationship with ourselves? I imagine someone may be out there, some old person like me might be out there kind of pulling their hair out going, there's only one of me. How can I have a relationship with myself?
Right.
It's just me. We're not talking about a group here.
Right. I know. And I think the key is to learn how to look at ourselves, excuse me, a little bit more objectively. I think if we look at everything a little more objectively, we would probably handle things a little bit better.
Yep.
But, yeah, I think it's just, what was the question again? It was
well, you know, this idea that we can have a relationship with ourselves, kind of like stepping out of who we are to look back at who we are, and I think that gets confusing for folks sometimes.
I think the most important thing is, how do we talk to ourselves all day long? Because this is sort of what I teach English, and I have grandsons, and I see. I mean, so early on, it breaks my heart. You know, children are already talking so negatively to themselves. They're beating themselves up. They're putting themselves down. And I think, you know, if parents can sort of point that out and make kids a little bit more aware of what they're telling themselves, I think that'll go a long way. And I think that alone will start the idea of, you know, of treating yourself. Like, how are you treating yourself? Would you say something like that to your best friend or to someone you love? So I think it's really just starting with an awareness.
Boy, you know, what you just said, it reminded me of some conversations that I had with my kids when they were younger. And I forget if it was my daughter or if it was my son. But I also know I've had this conversation with my niece not too long ago. And I said to her, you know, if I ever heard anybody speaking about you the way you're speaking about themselves, they would have a problem with me.
Right. Exactly. And then that's how it starts. We start so young, putting ourselves down and, you know, being negative towards ourselves. And then when we're adults, you know, those patterns are so ingrained, sometimes we don't even know we're doing it. So I just think, you know, the earlier we start, the better.
Well, I think sometimes we don't realize that we're talking to ourselves. I remember growing up, my mother telling me, stop talking to yourself. But, you know, I don't think that what you're not talking about having a conversation with yourself as if you're a ventriloquist. It's those inner conversations that we're talking about, right? Yeah.
I mean, and actually just touching on what you're talking about, it's okay to talk to yourself out loud. Like, I do it all the time. I think the danger comes if you're not aware of doing that. But I think talking yourself out loud, I mean, of course you don't want to be a spectacle. And you do have to be aware. I mean, it might not be appropriate, but like when I'm alone and stuff, sometimes I will say something out loud to myself. And I think that is actually healthy because it shows that you're being kind of objective. But yeah, you have to be careful not to do it too much out in public and whatnot.
well,
But like sometimes when we mess up, we might think, oh God, what a dumb thing to do. Or I'll say it out loud. Sometimes we'll do that. Like, oh my gosh, like that was dumb. So then I'll just continue and say something more positive out loud. Like, boy, that maybe wasn't the smartest thing. It's all, again, just trying to be kind with ourselves. Really, that's the bottom line, is how can we be more kind with ourselves?
I agree with you. We talk a lot about how important it is that we consider the words that we use when we're speaking to others. And, and I remember being, working in human services, working with kids in detention centers where there was a lot of really negative behavior. And it was really, really important for me to never say to someone, you're a jerk, or you're, whatever. It was maybe, right now you're kind of acting like a jerk, and kind of separating that. So to make sure that my words weren't escalating and causing a problem. But I think you're right. We don't take that same care with ourselves.
Yeah, I know. And it's sad. And because, the problem is that if we don't catch it early, they become like really ingrained thoughts, and neural pathways are dug deep in our brains. And then all of a sudden we find ourselves in therapy and it kind of boils down to that, we're not nurturing ourselves and being kind to ourselves and making healthy choices and all those good things that when we have a good relationship with ourselves, everything kind of falls into place.
It's interesting, and I'm not going to ask you to explain about the neural pathways. I've done a little research in it, and it is true, when we can get into these loops of thought where we're just kind of, our thoughts are just kind of going around the same neural pathways, and they can be really negative sometimes, and we need to break out of those patterns.
Yeah. You just start forming a habit of thinking that way. And then, pretty soon you don't even know you're doing it. So.
How did Danielle Dufayet get to this point where you've committed a huge part of your life to inspiring others and helping others find that strength inside of themselves?
Yeah, I just feel like it's my passion to help children or anybody, but, to feel that sense of self-empowerment and the self-love is just so important. It's never too early or too late to learn these concepts and put them into practice. I just feel like if you don't know how to manage your emotions in a healthy way and you don't have a sense of, self-love, a good amount of it anyway, you're not going to have inner peace. And if you don't have inner peace, you're just not going to be happy. And I want people to be happy. Like I really do. That's that just motivates me. If I know that my books have inspired someone to just be happier and healthier, then that just makes my day, honestly.
I'm looking at a preview of Fantastic You, and one of the things that struck me is that the characters, it's a really diverse group of characters. Why was that important to you?
Oh, well, I didn't want it to limit it to just one type of person. So I wanted to, make it as inclusive as possible so that children can relate, whether you're a boy or a girl, African American, Asian, it just doesn't matter. Just all human beings.
One of the things too I love about the book is that there's a section, a note to parents and caregivers. Talk a little bit about that and why you thought it was important to to create that. There's almost as much information there as there is in the rest of the book.
Right. Well, so my publisher, Imagination Press, who published You Are Your Strong and Fantastic You, always has a note to parents and caregivers in the back of their books. And this was actually not written by me. It was written by Julie Martin Birch, who's a staff psychologist. And so I think it's just helpful to have tips that kind of are really broken down for parents and caregivers as to, to promote positivity in children and helping them with coping skills and things like that. So I think it's very helpful. I love it that they did that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what kind of response have you gotten from families who've sat down and read Fantastic You together?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's been really positive so far because, I mean, this is a positive book. This is celebrating who you are and celebrating a positive lifelong relationship with yourself. So, and I think parents really appreciate that it kind of goes from morning to night. So it shows the different parts of the day and what could possibly happen. And, like for instance, if something happens and you're disappointed, what can you do? I mean, sure, it's always great to have someone there to support you and show you love. But if not, then hey, you can build a fort. You can just, do something to cheer yourself up and get you out of that mood. So just simple little things like that. I want kids to be reminded that they have the power to choose those kinds of actions or thoughts to make their day better, because we can all do it.
What kind of things does Danielle Dufayet do during her day when she finds herself feeling down or alone?
Well, I do all sorts of things. Like I do art, which makes me very happy. Even just, taking a walk or listening to music. Like if I'm down, I purposely won't listen to music that's going to make me more down, or I won't put on a show that's going to make me feeling a little bit more sad if I'm in that kind of mood. So I'm very selective and I'm very vigilant on what I put in my mind. If I want to change my mood, but there's just so many things. I think it's just knowing that we can do that whenever we want to. I just want kids to know that they don't have to stay stuck.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I'm also checking out your artwork. You mentioned that you do art sometimes to get yourself out of those moods, and you have a very distinct style, and especially with colors. I mean, I think you and I both have a passion for really bright, vibrant colors. I'm wearing my tie-dye blue T-shirt from Costa Rica right now.
Yes, I think bright colors are just they're uplifting, and so even in my artwork, I want my artwork to be just joyful and uplifting, and I'm all about positivity. So yeah, that comes through my art too. So thank you for complimenting me.
Yeah. Well, I know folks are going to want to know more about Danielle Dufayet and also Fantastic You. So where can folks go online to connect with you?
My website is danielledufayetbooks.com, and I think there might be a link to my art website. I don't even remember, but they can connect with me there and see. I also teach, and I teach public speaking and self-empowerment classes to middle graders, so they can learn more about that. So yeah, it's just my name, danielledufayetbooks.com.
Excellent. We've had such a great time talking about self-love, self-care, and about the brand new book, Fantastic You, with the author Danielle Dufayet. Danielle, thanks so much for being part of our show.
Thank you so much. Great opportunity. Always such a pleasure to talk with you.
And in just a moment, we're going to invite Deepa Remesh to come in and tell us all about Mystery Tales. But before we do, I want to let you know about another book that we were displaying at our booth at the Chicago Touring Game Fair. It's called Pilates for Parenting by my dear friend Holly Kinley. Holly is just a wonderful author. She is a therapist. And this book, Pilates for Parenting, it's a brilliant concept. I mean, we're all very aware of how important it is for us to exercise, to keep our bodies fit and healthy. We join gyms, we take classes, we develop daily disciplines, all in an effort to better care for ourselves. So why not take the same approach to our most important role, being a parent? As this little book points out, from the moment your child enters the world, you are the most important person in your child's life. Pilates for Parenting by Holly Kinley teaches simple yet powerful exercises that will help you strengthen your parental core. Implementing the exercises will help you develop daily disciplines to become more aware and mindful of your role as a parent. It's Pilates for Parenting by my friend Holly Kinley. It is a must-have for every parent. joining us right now from Austin in the great state of Texas. I'm real excited to talk about a really cool couple of books. The name of the series is The Mystery Tales. Please welcome to the show, Deepa Remesh. Deepa, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you?
I am wonderful. It's a beautiful night here in Boston. I'm excited to learn about Mystery Tales. Tell us all about it, please.
So Mystery Tales, like you said, it's a book series, and it is about a character named Mystery. She's a mysterious lady who sends kids on missions to learn all about trees. So she has this club, which is called the Plant Savers Club, and she is a fictional character, obviously, but she's looking for kids who can join her club and help her protect trees and plants. So the books focus, like each book focuses on a particular tree, and the kids, they visit the natural habitat of that tree and try to learn about the tree. They learn about the obvious uses and also the not so obvious uses of trees. Mm-hmm. And they meet new friends. They do a lot of crafts. They play a lot of games involving some parts of the trees. And what we are trying to encourage here is a love for nature. And through this club, which is called the Plant Savers Club.
That's wonderful. I love that. And I love the idea of trying to get kids to be more aware of their surroundings, more aware of nature, but also more aware of trees. Trees are these magnificent beings, I guess, that are such an incredibly important part of our life, and they're, well, if you're living in a big city, you might not see them that often, but they're all around us, and there's something that we take for granted way, way, way too much.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm actually fortunate to be living in Austin, which is, I would say, like, the people around here, they love trees, and there are a lot of organizations in Austin which are all about planting trees and protecting trees and also doing a lot of things in the urban forestry department. So that way, it's really cool to be here, and then it's a very good venue to be writing about these books about trees.
That's awesome. I talk often about the where we are here in the Reedville neighborhood of Boston. We're within the city, but we're on the very, very border of the city, and our property backs up to a wildlife sanctuary. So while we live in the city of Boston, we feel like we're out in the country because, I have 26 trees on my property, and then there's this wildlife sanctuary right on the other side of our fence. So we're really fortunate, and there are many times when I'll sit out, and when my kids were younger and they were still home, we'd sit out and we'd just look at all of the creatures that were living. We have this one big tree right in the center of our yard. I think it's an oak tree. I'm not sure, but it's just this beautiful, enormous tree. And when the kids were younger, we had a tire swing attached to one of the branches, and so it's always been an important part of our home. And just to think about all the birds and the squirrels and the bugs and the chipmunks and all the different things that live in this one tree. It's just mind-boggling sometimes.
Yeah, that's wonderful to know, yeah.
Yeah. So what inspired you to create the Mystery Tales and to inspire kids to be more aware of trees?
Yeah, so I would say what inspired me is the world that I grew up in. So I was born in a small town in India, in the southern part of India. Mm-hmm. And it's a small state, and it's very tropical and green and full of trees. And I grew up in a time when I would say people were very resourceful, mm-hmm. and they led a more sustainable lifestyle. So those values, that is what I would like to convey to the new generation. And growing up in that small town, surrounded by people who are leading a very resourceful life and also using different parts of trees and other natural resources in a sustainable fashion. So that is something, that lifestyle is something that I would like to convey to kids.
What does that mean to live a more sustainable life? And maybe kind of contrast and compare what it was like growing up in southern India as opposed to what life is like for kids growing up in Austin.
If I look back to my childhood, I would say it was a time when we did not have too much technology. And right now, I can see that we have a lot of technology around us, which is good in many ways, but also it kind of disconnects us with nature or from nature. So at that time, like growing up in that small town, like it was surrounded by trees, and like I said, I could see how people used different parts of trees and they wasted less because it was not a time of plenty. But right now, we are living in the time of plenty. Like we have access to almost anything we need. Mm-hmm. So with the click of a button, we can get so many things, which has a good side and a bad side. So I think if we have both sides of the world, like if we can balance ourselves, that would be the best thing that could happen. So that is that balance, like seeing the good part of technology. So these books that we write, like there is that fictional aspect of mystery and who sends kids on missions. So she uses a lot of seed devices, which are again fictional devices, or use of technology to record information about what the kids learn on their mission. And, some fun aspect where kids can change sizes, like they can shrink and they can grow and they can travel on these seed copters. So all that is there in the books, but that is used as a means of gaining knowledge about nature and finding out information about trees. So that is where we are trying to blend in the use of technology with connecting back to nature.
How long has this been a passion for you?
So I would say, this whole thing, like writing the books, it started 2 years back. So I have been working on collecting information and researching for these books.
It's wonderful. Now, where can we find the Mystery Tales?
Yeah, so the books are available on Amazon. And I would say, like, the best place to go is to visit our website, which is, again, mysterytales.com. So there you can connect with us on different social media. You can connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram. So all that information is there. And we also have a YouTube channel, which we are slowly trying to grow. So we have a few videos where we show how kids can use different natural products for their own crafts and games.
Excellent, excellent. And what kind of future plans do you have for the Mystery Tales?
We are working on a picture book. So right now, what we have are small chapter books, which are geared towards early readers or middle grade readers. Mm-hmm. And what we are trying to work on now is a few picture books with information kind of abstracted from our chapter books.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. So the website is misstreetales.com, and it's not Mystery Tales, it's Miss Tree Tales. Actually, it's .blogspot.com. And it's a great website, and you can find out all about the first two books in the series, Mighty Coconuts and Incredible Cacao. We were just down in Central America, and we learned a lot about cacao. What kind of things would kids learn about cacao in your book, Incredible Cacao?
Yes, so cacao or cocoa is also called the chocolate tree. So in that book, what we're trying to include is how the seeds of the cacao tree can be used to make chocolate. Mm-hmm. So kids usually see chocolate on the shelves in the grocery stores. Mm-hmm. But then what goes behind in creating that product is what the book covers. And it's not just the process of manufacturing it, but also about the tree itself, the region that it grows, like what kind of environment it likes. And we talk about the animals or the ecosystem that helps to grow that tree.
That's fascinating. Fascinating. Well, we're really excited. We wanted to encourage everybody to check out the Miss Tree Tales by our guest, Deepa Remesh. Deepa, thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Jana Thatch. She will be here to tell us about My Superhero Mind. That is the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, we would love to have you as a guest on the podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you a chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic children's book. All you need to do is to go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the contact button at the bottom of the page, let us know about your great book. We will let you know about the next easy step. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so very, very wonderful. Of course, I want to thank our friend Danielle Dufayet. Be sure to check out Fantastic You. I want to thank our friend Deepa Remesh, the author of Miss Tree Tales. I want to thank our sponsor, Stephen Joseph, the author of The Last Surviving Dinosaur, the Tyrannosaurus. And, of course, I want to thank my dear friend Holly Kenley. Be sure to check out Pilates for Parenting. Pilates for Parenting. It is a wonderful book. It's Pilates for Parenting by my friend Holly Kenley. Also want to thank my producer, Fatima Khan. Be sure to check out Fatima's blog at our website, readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all of the support that she gives me. I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you so much for subscribing to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Himalaya, Podbean, or wherever you find your podcast. But most of all, I want to thank you for helping to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.